Hello everyone, this is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being here. I am back with you for another YouTube video. If you may have noticed, I was kind of down for the count. I was out for about a month. Had crazy, kind of unexpected turn with health. I had like an emergency, had an emergency hysterectomy that I had to have. Like got a sharp pain, went to the hospital. They're like, you need to have surgery now. I started having complications after that surgery and I bled out, had a lot of internal bleeding and lost almost all of my blood, about 70% of my blood. So it has been a long road with transfusion after transfusion after transfusion, but I am back here with you guys. That was the reason that I had about a month off, and I am slowly recuperating and getting back into work bit by bit and love connecting with you all. So it's my heart to be back, living out my purpose. I'm still here, still trucking. I'm just receiving the message from my body to slow down. And so I've been doing that. It's been just a lot of slower process for me, but I'm still here and I'm grateful just to be here. It's a beautiful space of just living. There's nothing like health and sudden health emergency to shift into even deeper perspective, especially when you are alone during a lot of that. I mean, I had wonderful friends and family, but a lot of the healing process is that space when you are just you inside a form or you inside a consciousness speaking to spirit. It's a beautiful time of connection. And I got a lot of that time. So all that being said, I am still back here and receiving y'all's questions that you are responding or sending in. So on that note, let's get on with the question for today. This one was in response to a video that I have on the channel about your gifts and kind of getting started or noticing when spirit starts speaking and you're kind of new to things and wondering, what does this mean or why is this happening? I'm seeing a lot of things, so what do I do about it? So she wrote in, okay, I feel spirits. They talk to me and I can see them. So what kind of psychic ability do I have? I'm trying to learn, but they also touched me and that's the part I don't like. So what kind of psychic am I? So I love this. I will say as a caveat that I have a masterclass teaching curriculum. If you go to my website, themodernshaman.net, and then you go on to teaching, the teaching tab, there are a few different opportunities for teaching. I have an entrepreneur program, I have mentorship, and I also have the masterclass. Now that's what I would recommend for you because it's got so much information and you can do singular modules. I'll talk about that a little further, but a lot of what you're asking, like once you start figuring things out, those modules are really, I just explain it in simple terms. They give handouts, they give guided meditations, activations, instruction, practice. So it gets really tangible. And I think that's so helpful when we're in a world that is metaphysical and spiritual and psychic. We tend to not know the tangible connection, or like, what does this mean in my daily interaction? You hit on that, and I love that you touched on that about how it's kind of interacting with your world. And that's the big thing that I feel like the teaching curriculum is wonderful for, because it brings it home into your everyday life, into your waking world, and it makes it not so, I don't want to say not so magical, but it just makes it tangible. It makes it, there's practice, there's exercises to do, there's things that you can set up to have structure and capability to where you feel like you're in control of your own connections. Okay, so the first thing I'll say to answer your question on your psychic ability, you mentioned 3. There are 6 identified psychic senses. There's probably way more than that, but just universally identified, and in terms of parapsychology and a lot of data that they've done a lot of research in scientific journals and all sorts of areas of study. And so they've identified the top 6, but 3 out of those are the ones you mentioned. So seeing spirits would be clairvoyant, right? Anytime that we see spirits, we see colors, we see, sometimes it's like waves or shadows. It's not necessarily like a big movie screen or like a visual apparition, but sometimes it's an awareness of the vision, or it stems in our imagination, in our interior space of our mind. But nonetheless, it comes with imagery. If it comes with an image, you're considered clairvoyant. The second one you mentioned is that you can hear them. So this is clairaudience, and this is a lot of times in our own internal ear, and sometimes it uses the sound of our own voice. It's not until we really spend time differentiating that we learn how to tell who is speaking and gain character traits and all of this kind of stuff. I will say, so I have a module in that class, module number 4. It's called the psychic senses, and it goes through each of the psychic senses. And then also there's individual modules. The clairaudient module is module number 6, clairvoyant is module number 5, and they each go through kind of meditations and practices for developing that skill, especially with, when I think of clairaudience, like gaining the knowledge of who is speaking to you, the knowledge of how to turn it off and mute it or turn it down, or how to have access that feels, again, like you're in control and not being overwhelmed. That's so much of our experience when we first begin, is like, okay, I'm getting all of this, now what do I do with it? So the modules are great for that. And then you also mentioned touch. And this one that you didn't like, this is the psychic sense of clairsentience, sensations of the body. For some people, this is like chill bumps when there is confirmation from spirit. From others, it may be heat, like they can feel almost spirit hugging them or coming close. There's a onslaught of temperature change. For others, it is literal, like poking or blowing on you or touching you or grabbing you, or sometimes it can be not so great, like scratching you or, you know, kind of abrasive touch. That is the psychic sense of clairsentience, and that's module 7 in my masterclass. But I will say, it brings me to my second point, which is when you begin to identify your gifts, the first part of gaining structure that's so important is to create healthy psychic protection for yourself. So you mentioned that you don't like the fact that you're getting touched by spirit. You can set up psychic boundaries around that. Oftentimes when people come to me and they're like, I don't like the spirit does this, or I don't want to develop my gifts because I'm afraid anything will come in, or there's a lot of fears around the unknown. And people forget their own sovereign power. We have interaction just like we do in our own front door. We don't have to open the door to any and all people that come knocking, right? We don't have to be friends with everybody that we see on a daily basis. There may be interactions that you have with the non-physical realm that you can create structures around. Now, this is also, I know this feels like a pitch. It kind of is a pitch, but there's so much more information for you if you are genuinely seeking. And that's just why I created that program. So it's the kind of stuff that I wish someone had told me when I was younger and felt completely overwhelmed and bombarded. I created the curriculum because I needed structure. And then I realized, like, why? Oh my gosh, this is like life-changing to be able to just like turn it off when I want to turn it off. Why did someone not teach me this? So all that being said, there are modules on boundaries for spirit, Module 2 goes into psychic protection. And this is kind of what you hear a lot about in the New Age community, but they're a little more general, like creating a bubble or creating white light or amplifying energy out or grounding, or you can create plexiglass imagery, you can create windows, you can create mirrors to reflect back if there's something negative that you don't want to receive. There's all sorts of things in psychic protection. Then to take it a step further though, when you really have psychic skills, you need to create guidelines and rules for spirit, okay? And this is in, I think it's module 8. It's a little higher level down. Once you've identified your gifts, then you can structure them better, okay? And I always compare this to like when you go into the first day of class at a school, they say, these are the rules in my classroom, and this is the guidelines of like how I structure my classroom, like where you turn in your papers. This is the rubric. This is when things are due. This is how much they account for. They create a structure of flow. If you don't have that in your own household, okay, say maybe you have children. If they don't have rules, they run amok. If they don't know what time to go to bed, if they don't know that they have to brush their teeth every night, if they don't know that what time dinner is here, if they don't know not to interrupt you when you're on the phone, or how often they're allowed to watch TV, or just any structure. You need to create the same structure, and I teach you how to do that for yourself when it comes to non-physical interaction. Otherwise, you're like the substitute teacher or the parent who has no boundaries and everybody just runs around and it's chaotic and you're exhausted and you're overwhelmed. If that is you, and it's most people, it was me. Sorry, this thing keeps falling out. I have tiny ears. Then you have to create a structure that has flow and significance. And these are different for every person. It's not standard. It's not like this is what everybody does, because spirit doesn't speak the same to every person, right? If you're not clairaudient, you don't need boundaries around, or you don't have to learn how to use a volume knob or hit mute or how to create things like that. But if you are clairsentient and experiencing touch and things that you don't want to experience, my first suggestion would be to create some spatial boundaries. That spirit must, stay 5 feet out when they're wanting to communicate with you, and they can kind of touch your field to where you know that they're there. When spirit touches your field, this is oftentimes the sensation we get when we're like, I know I'm being watched, or I know someone's here, or I know there's a spirit present. Those are when they come into your auric field, but they're not literally like touching up on you. You can create spatial boundaries like that you alone are comfortable with. I go through how to create them, how to state them, how to project them, and then how to amplify them out, essentially aligning with the vibration and the power in creating a boundary. So there are steps on how to essentially uphold them. You do have to state them. I always suggest you take a physical posture, mind, body, and spirit all aligned when you create those. I do also have a lot of videos on this YouTube channel, free videos. This is all just free content here that goes through steps of that because people have asked about boundaries. I go through empathic boundaries. So those, if you're an empath, that's also another term for clairsentient. It's a type of clairsentient who feels the emotional energy, not just physical touch, but also emotional touch. And so I go through in a video about empathic boundaries. I go through strengthening psychic boundaries, so kind of a level up, because just as your children grow, or if you're in a classroom, you may go to a higher level classroom. Things change in your world, in your life. They're always evolving and changing, and you'll always need to evolve and kind of upgrade or change your boundaries. So you may have some that are significant and work for you now, but I have videos on this channel about what you do when you need to strengthen them or up-level them, or that they change and you want to take them down. So it's just helpful to kind of know that language. I hope that is helpful to you, and also just want to encourage you. I'm glad that you are recognizing your own sense of connection. This is a powerful time in the world right now where a lot of people are awakening to their own non-physical connections and open and into moving into their sovereign power of authority, really taking on a sense of ownership of all that we put out, because we are constantly engaging with each other's energy. And I feel like now we're finally gaining a language around that in just our regular culture, where people are conscious and wanting to engage with a sense of sensitivity and honor with one another. So I'm very glad that you asked the question, and just cheering you on in your development of your own gifts. Blessings, you guys. I'm going to sign off here. We'll be back with another video next week.